Hey everyone, welcome to this week's episode of the ROYL Podcast. This week we got a special treat for you all. This is one that I've been looking forward to for some time now. And our guest today in the virtual studio is Mr. Allen Greene. He is no stranger to the ROYL Podcast and ROYL Ministries in general. He's a good friend of mine, and he's also the Senior Design Director for Answers in Genesis' attractions team there. And today we're going to be talking about Spark at the Ark and talking about some current and future plans for the attraction. So you don't want to miss that. But first things first, this Saturday, June 14th at 1 p.m., we will be at Kings Island for our very first meetup of 2025. We're so excited for this day. Many great things planned, including the first ever Coaster Quest, which is our scavenger hunt through Kings Island. And I was reviewing through the list. We've got something of all levels of difficulty. So we got the easy things that if you've been to the park before, you know exactly where these things are. There's some that you may think you know, but may not. I mean, there's some things like you will have to look high and low. So we're covering all the bases. It's going to be a lot of fun. Needless to say, but it's going to be a fun time there. And then most importantly, we're just going to have some good time, fellowship and fun, riding some coasters and attractions at the park. So you don't want to miss it. It's this Saturday, June 14th, 2025 at 1 p.m. at Kings Island. And for that, there's no special ticket. Just come to the park if you have a pass, or if you want to purchase a ticket at the park, check online. There's some good deals there. But yeah, so that is this Saturday. You don't want to miss it. And then these episodes that we're having coming up are some of the last ones for this season, so stay tuned. I believe we have 2 more after this week, so stay tuned for those. We got some good ones coming up, including a mystery guest that you will have to tune in for. We may do a live stream with this person, so tune in for the very last episode of this season, and then we'll wrap up 2025 with season 6, which will be kind of our hiatus, and wrapping up a chapter of the ROYL Podcast. So we'll talk about that more come August when we pick up with the next season. But we got some really cool things planned and some guests I want to get in contact with and have on here for the podcast. So without further delay, we don't want to hold our guests up too much longer. One last thing here before we dive into this week's episode. I do want to give you a heads up. Technology was being technology for us, as it always is here on the podcast. But the last 6 minutes of the episode were cut. So Alan's recording somehow just stopped, and we didn't get the last, I think it's 2 or 3 questions. But they were just some listener questions that we will answer in due time for you guys so you can hear those answers. But again, we thank you all for sending those in. It is very much appreciated. It's very nice for Alan to get some mystery questions, if you would. I filled them in before we started the recording, but anyways, those were cut due to time, and then how to contact him, which I'll fill you all in for those. But let's go ahead and dive into this week's episode of the ROYL Podcast. You don't want to miss a second of this very exciting episode, so go ahead, buckle up, because here we go. Hey everyone, welcome to this week's episode of the ROYL Podcast, and this episode I am so excited for. This has been in the works for a while, and I'm so excited to have him back in the virtual studio. For those who don't know Alan, you're going to know him in this episode, but if you go back to season 3, we had him as a guest, and he's been a good friend of ours and just encouragement to us here at ROYL, and I'm going to go ahead and turn on over to him. Y'all are going to love this. But today we're welcoming back Allen Greene. How you doing, Alan?
Hey, Donnie, I'm doing great. Thank you so much for having me on. Doing good. Great to see you.
Good to see you too, brother. And we're going to go ahead and have you introduce yourself for those who didn't hear the previous episode we did with you. Go ahead and share a little bit about yourself and your testimony.
Yeah, okay, cool. Yeah, so my name's Allen Greene. I work now at Anthers and Genesis. We have our attractions in Northern Kentucky, the Ark Encounter and Creation Museum. I'm senior design director with our attractions design team. But just in a short summary, I grew up, became a believer in Jesus when I was 9. I was blessed to grow up in a Christian family, put my faith in Christ at that time, and have had a love for both the Lord and also the themed entertainment industry, and kind of pursued that in my career. So that's a little bit about me.
Awesome. And you mentioned you're with Answers in Genesis, and that's what we really want to focus in on today, and some of your attraction experience as well. But how did you get your start with Answers in Genesis, and what are some of the areas you've been able to work and minister in while there?
Okay, yeah, sure. So when I was graduating from college, this is back in 2011. I went to UC, studied industrial design, wanted to work in theme park design, themed entertainment design, something like that. Around that time, and I was kind of praying, seeking, looking for what life after college would look like. My mom, she found this article in a newspaper about this themed attraction coming to Northern Kentucky called the Ark Encounter.
Hmm.
And I was just like, oh my goodness, wow. I mean, this I had never even dreamed of how cool it could be to combine. Um, I mean, in my mind, my love for the Lord and Scripture and themed entertainment, and it just seemed like this amazing coming together of those two things. And so, from there began a journey where I sought after. Kind of as things went along, I was put in contact with Patrick Marsh, who led the attractions design department at Answers in Genesis. To make a long story short, it took some time, but the door opened for me to start working there. And I've always worked at AIG in the attractions design team. I've had a few different titles. Started as exhibit designer. I'm senior design director now, but have always worked in that department, and it's been great. I love what we get to do there.
Awesome. And with that, what are some of the we'll get into this a little more in depth later on, but what are some of the neat projects you guys are working on now that we could see
Yeah.
possibly this year?
Yeah, okay, cool. We actually have a pretty big year this year. I mean, it feels like we always have projects going on at different stages. Some that are in kind of this initial blue sky stage, some that are in more concept design phase, some that are in execution. So it's just like this constant, always something going on. But this year, we have several that we've been working on for, in some cases, years that we hope to open up. Could be end of this year, could be early next year, but coming up relatively soon at both our attractions, the Creation Museum and the Ark Encounter. This summer, we'll be opening up a butterfly house and an area we're calling a creature feature. Both are right next to each other, and we'll showcase, in one case, butterflies, and another creepy, crawly animals, but just showing God's creation. It's kind of an expansion of last year we opened our conservatory, Plants of the Bible Conservatory, which is really just like one part of this larger plaza with different offerings. So that'll be coming this summer. Then towards the end of this year or early next year, we'll see. It all, there's lots of variables with these kind of big projects, but we have a new exhibit coming into the Creation Museum called Radiance, and it's an exhibit about God's identity for us. We'll have, I think, more lighting effects in this exhibit than any other exhibit we've done, and so kind of the theme, kind of the visual metaphor is that we find our true identity reflecting the light of God, of Christ. So that's why we'll kind of be using a lot of lighting effects. Then at the Ark Encounter, a project we've been working on for years, and we're getting closer to the finish line, is our new Welcome Center, which is both a functional and themed space. So it's functional because it'll kind of transform how we do um, our entry experience for guests, how they'll handle ticketing and restrooms, ECV rentals, but it's also a visual kind of first impression for guests coming. So there'll be a lot of immersive things that we'll have going on there. Then we also have a new restaurant coming to the Creation Museum called Sprig and Stone. And then still probably years out from now, but an active project we're working on now is our Jerusalem model project where we're building a first century model of Jerusalem. So those are just some of the things in the works right now.
Awesome. And since you've been on the podcast last, there's some exhibits and things that have opened at both the Ark and Creation Museum, and those, I believe, were Borderlands. You just opened Fearfully and Wonderfully Made, the Plants of the Bible, which I was blown away by that when we came to
Cool.
Spark at the Ark, and then Palms Plaza. So, can you tell us a little bit about those as well?
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. So it's I couldn't remember when I was on the podcast when it was, but yeah, so in our Creation Museum, we have an area called Palm Plaza, and it's at the end of guest experience, and it is a themed environment, but it's also kind of a hub for a few different kind of auxiliary exhibits. So we updated that whole area. We kind of did new theming throughout this area. It's a very cool like marketplace theme, and we'd always wanted to do more with it. It's an original part of the museum, but this allowed us to really amplify this space. We've added new lighting, new murals, a new mezzanine in one section that you can dine up on. But then we also introduced two new exhibits, which you mentioned, Borderland, which is an exhibit about life in the time of Christ, Israel in the first century, and it really brings to life what was this time period like. And our team did a lot of research and a lot of work, both in doing art in 2 dimensions and 3 dimensions in the form of dioramas and beautiful concept art style pieces to really bring to life what was Israel like in the days of Jesus. There's also a book that came out corresponding to that exhibit, which kind of goes even into more depth on that topic. And the kind of vibe of that space has really set up kind of the inspiration for the whole Jerusalem model project that we're working on at the Ark. Then next to Borderland, the exhibit, we have our Sanctity of Life exhibit we call Fearfully and Wonderfully Made. And this exhibit, really, it's a celebration of God's gift of life, of human life that we each get to have. And so this was a very important exhibit to us, and there's a lot of things we do in it, like in terms of kind of special effects, which was very challenging and enjoyable. We have 12 small baby models that represent from fertilization to a full-term baby, and we use the kind of classic Pepper's Ghost effect so that we overlay onto each of these static model babies a different organ or feature developing inside them, which from a kind of technical perspective was, like I said, was challenging. It was a lot of fun. It was rewarding in the end to see what appears like a heart beating inside of a baby or a skeletal structure or a brain, things like that. But yeah, it was a really fun project, and yeah, it's been fun to see guests interact with all those new exhibit spaces. Then outside the museum, but still on the museum property, we opened up our Plants of the Bible Conservatory at the end of last year, like winter of last year, and this is a very cool project. It's really it was led by one of our key team members named Tim Schmidt, who has an incredible skill with horticulture and plants, and he just did an incredible job. But the idea is you walk through our conservatory and we feature plants that are found in the scriptures. So we have signage that explains how these plants were, where they were in scripture, and we end with a gospel presentation. We bring in the crown of thorns and the tree of life, and so yeah, lots of fun things there at the Creation Museum. We've been open in the last few years.
Awesome. And that's the one thing I loved about the Plants of the Bible exhibit. It's like it still presented the gospel even through plants. And
Yeah,
I love that
yeah,
crown of thorns and crown of life that you
yeah.
mentioned. And then going back to Fearfully and Wonderfully Made, and it's neat to see the exhibit come to fruition. I remember you were trying to explain it to us, but it's hard to explain, but you just
Yeah.
have to see it. And to make the story of Fearfully and Wonderfully Made even funnier, I attended Doug Henderson's session
Yeah.
at the
Yeah.
Spark at the Ark, and he told us,
Yeah.
"Alan, this ain't gonna work."
Right.
But
Yes.
go ahead and tell us a little bit about what happened with the Pepper's Ghost
Sure.
effect.
Yeah, that I'm glad you got to attend Doug's session there. So Doug, he's our supervising art director. He oversees all of our exhibit maintenance or exhibits artistry and maintenance. But so he and I really were kind of partners in trying to bring that exhibit to life. And I wanted to bring this Pepper's Ghost effect to life. Again, that's where we would kind of make it look like there's animated organs and such inside these model babies, but to not get into too much complication, we had multiple pieces of glass and they were reflecting off of each other, causing all these unwanted reflections. And we're at a point where we were just like, how can we make this work? We don't know of any solution here. And like any project, there's a timeline, there's limitations on schedule and on budget, and that just kind of amplifies the stress of it all. And so I think Doug probably shared, we kind of left the exhibit in kind of construction mode one night thinking, well, I just don't have any answers. I don't know how we can overcome this. And Doug he's so gifted in so many ways, but one of his interests is like illusions and magic kind of tricks. And so he had seen something where they used privacy film, which is kind of a plastic that if you look through in one direction you can see, but if you turn it you can't see through it. And he had seen that used in a magic trick, and he thought, well, could we use that to prevent some of these unwanted reflections? And so we got some, we tried it, it worked. It actually made the exhibit better than we had ever kind
Wow.
of thought it could be, in a sense, because we covered all these kind of monitors and such with this film. And so now when you stand in front of one of these model babies, as you approach the baby, the reflected organ just kind of softly reveals itself, and then as you keep going, it softly disappears because of your angle to that to that film. So anyway, God used Doug to really pull us out of a hard situation, and God used kind of Doug's interest in magic and things to do that. So grateful for Doug. But that's just one little story of there's a lot of God stories in the creation of these exhibits where we come to moments where we're like, I don't know how we're going to overcome this, and then God provides a solution. We're like, thank you God so much. So yeah.
And I loved hearing that story. It's just,
Yeah.
and all the exhibits in the Creation Museum and Ark Encounter are very important. But I will say this one, with just our culture right now, it's needed. And I know Radiance is going to be much needed. And after
Yeah.
seeing, just walking through that space, seeing the concept art of
Mhm.
what it's going to look like, and man, I
Yeah.
it's everybody needs to go to the Creation Museum. Whether you've been there back when it first opened, it's completely different now.
It
Almost, it's
is.
completely
Yes.
different, and just it keeps adding and adding so many things, and it's just amazing to see how God's been using that. And what are some of the stories you've heard from some of these exhibits, how it's impacted people's lives?
Yeah. Well, one exhibit where we intentionally ask people to share their story with us is our Fearfully and Wonderfully Made exhibit. We At the end of the exhibit, we have this little section called something like "Share Your Fearfully and Wonderfully Made Story," and we give guests a QR code. They can go to that QR code and they can type in their story, and we project on the wall there at the end real people's stories and testimonies. They're not all like based on the exhibit, but it's like their fearfully and wonderfully made story.
Hmm.
Um, a few that come to mind that have just been really touching. One, there was this girl who went through Fearfully and Wonderfully Made, and I don't remember every detail. We wrote an article about it on our website, but she had some kind of a condition when she was born, where I think her life as before she was born was uncertain if she was going to make it, and she did. And she went through the exhibit and was so touched that it led her to go to like her local court, or like local government.
Wow.
And I think they were working on if they were going to pass an abortion bill, and she like testified that her life was not wasted, was not it meant something. And she's able to stand and say, like, my life is important, God made me, even though I wasn't for sure gonna make it. So she had a real sweet story. She After doing all that, she came back to the exhibit. We got to meet her. It was really cool. That was pretty special. But we're really blessed to hear other stories that people will come and share, just of being encouraged, or some even giving their life to Christ, or
Mm.
some feeling like they have had a lot of questions, like, can I trust the Bible? Can I trust that Jesus is Lord? And they'll come to our attractions and learn a lot of information and get resources, and they'll be able to be encouraged that they can trust in the scriptures and in Jesus. So it's really special. I mean, what we do is nothing, we're just there. God's the one who does it all. So we just get to have fun and see his hand at work. But it's really encouraging to hear stories like those.
Amen. And I can only imagine heaven will reveal just how many souls have been touched by these exhibits and experiences, and how many souls came to know Christ, whether it was
Yeah.
through Fearfully and Wonderfully Made, whether it was the seven C's, the doors to salvation,
Yeah.
whatever it may be.
Yeah.
It's just amazing how you guys have taken these biblical truths and put them in a very beautifully artistic way
Mm.
to bring people to the saving knowledge of Him that wouldn't typically go to a church. They'll come
Yeah.
to this neat attraction. They'll come to the world's largest art or attraction or something like that.
Yeah.
Something that will pique their interest. Um, that they get to hear the gospel. It's
Yeah.
presented to them literally every place you turn on these properties. You hear the gospel in some way or
Mm.
another, whether it's a lecture from Ken Ham, reading a sign, watching a video. The gospel is there, and that's what I love about Answers in Genesis. And just it's neat to see that, and the future is bright for Answers in
Mm.
Genesis and what it has in store, and gospel coming in new, different ways that people wouldn't imagine they'd be in.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
and just one of the neat ways to see that showcased was that spark at the Ark, and we're going to go ahead and talk about that now. I have a cheat sheet here of things I do want us to cover about Spark at the Ark, and this is almost your sales pitch, Alan. Let's go ahead and sell next year's event. So,
Yeah.
um, let's go ahead and jump into this year's event. So, let's begin of how did this come to be? How
Yeah.
did Spark at the Ark come to be?
Yeah, so the kind of the origin story of this event was a couple years ago. I was down at IAPA. IAPA is like a annual themed entertainment theme park world convention in Orlando trade show where all these different people from the industry show up, and me and it was just me who went the first time from AIG, were invited to this event I never heard of before called the IAPA Prayer Breakfast. And so I
Hmm.
showed up one morning and I was just amazed to see a relatively large group of people in our themed entertainment industry who would show up and spend a morning being encouraged, encouraging each other, praying, hearing a message that it was honored to God. And I was just like, this is incredible. I feel like I went to a Christian retreat, but then after the session, I'm back on the floor at IAP. I'm like, this is so cool. So I came back, I shared that with some of our team, and we kind of thought, could we do something kind of like that here at the Ark Encounter at the Creation Museum? So that was kind of the beginning where we just started to prepare for that. And it was so cool to see in kind of hindsight how the Lord introduced us to a number of people, believers in the industry, who we were able to invite to come and speak at Spark. Um, and it was just God's hand at work through the whole thing. So the event itself, kind of what we kind of came to as like, what is this thing? What's the core purpose? Is our thought was it's a place for encouragement for creatives who are Christians. Not that you have to be a Christian to come, but that's kind of where it's coming from. A place of encouragement. And so it's kind of focused on themed entertainment, which would be like theme park, museum design, but also theatrical productions, so stage shows and video creation, really in any creative person. So that was kind of the purpose of it all.
Nice. And what was that creative process of Spark? How did you create the layout of this event? Knowing what you wanted to incorporate, what you didn't want to incorporate. What was that
Yeah.
process like?
Well, there was a lot of brainstorming and conversations that went into that. It started with I mean we kind of thought about a lot of different angles, even the name itself, Spark. There was a lot of kind of conversation about how are we going to do this. I think some of the milestones of that kind of development included when we landed on having a few keynote speakers, specifically Theron Skis and Garner Holt, who spoke. That when we got them locked in, and of course Ken, our CEO, was locked in, it felt like, okay, I think we have something here now that people may be willing to come to. And we kind of knew from the beginning, okay, maybe we can do some tours, some behind the scenes kind of things. So we had like some ingredients, so to speak, that we were kind of beginning to put together. As things went on, we worked quite a bit with our events team. And if people don't know, at the Ark Encounter, we have a lot of events of different sorts. There's like events for men, for women, for pastors, for all kinds. There's like lots of specific events throughout the whole year for students. And so we have an events team that is really good at organizing events. They're used to it. All the logistical things, like where people are going to sit, what kind of food they're going to have, all that kind of stuff. So working with them really was amazing. And since they know how to do all this, it was really a partnership between our attractions design team and our events team. So yeah, it, like any event, there was more details than I ever thought there would be as we kind of were kind of up to the finish line, getting ready for the event. So many logistical things I never would have thought of, but it was a crazy fun process to see it all come together.
Awesome. And my only complaint with Spark at the Ark is you gave us too many good workshops to choose from. All the workshops were amazing. It was hard to pick which ones I went to. It's like, I want to go to, I like that one. I like, all three of these are too good. But
Yeah, I
the
know.
sessions,
That
yeah.
was hard. Yeah. I know what you mean. Yeah, it was hard. I mean, because we had so many people we wanted to be able to speak and we had limited time. And yeah, I know that was hard. Yeah.
But I will say the three sessions I was able to attend were phenomenal. So I mentioned Doug Henderson, David Zellner, which that was a great presentation. Just his
Yeah.
heart for people and the Lord is outstanding. And then I got to attend Sight and Sound, which that was such a great session there with the team that do the technology side of things. I've always loved Sight and Sound, and I love that they were a sponsor of the event as well. I hope they're coming
Yeah.
back in the future, but that was so neat to see that and even network with them. And you mentioned
Mhm.
this was like an IAPA event for Christians. That's instantly what I thought of when I heard of
Cool.
Spark at the Ark. It's just like this is amazing. This is something I've always dreamed about seeing. It's so neat it came to fruition. But that's cool that they have a prayer meeting at IAPA. So
Yeah.
that is so
It's
cool.
It's really cool. We were able to promote Spark at the IAPA prayer breakfast last year, which was really cool. And we hope to be able to do that this coming year. And you mentioned the different sessions. We recorded most of the sessions, and we're talking
Nice.
about putting them on our streaming service called Answers TV. So if anyone would like to see those, some of them we're planning at least to have them available there.
Cool. And I'm definitely going to have to get my Answers TV subscription again and check those out. But I was wondering if you guys were going to put some of those out.
Yeah,
Again, there's so
we
many
do.
sessions that I want to hear or watch.
I feel the same way because I wasn't able to attend them all, and so I felt the same way. I want to see these, and we weren't really sure when we had the event what we do with all those, but we did want to record them, so that's what we're kind of talking about right now.
Cool. And let's go ahead and do a walkthrough of the 2 days of the event. So, um, two almost completely different events. You had Arc Day and the Creation Museum
Yeah.
Day. Go ahead and give us a flyover of what folks got to experience those days.
Yeah, so like you said, day one was at the Ark, day two was at the Creation Museum. We wanted to allow our attendees to kind of experience both of those. So kind of the main focuses of the event included each day we had some keynote speakers. So day one we had our founder CEO Ken Ham, who shared about kind of the story of how did the ministry Answers in Genesis and the Ark Encounter and Creation Museum come to be. We had Theron Skis also speak on day one at the Ark, who he's an incredible guy, loves Jesus, has such a cool background with he was an executive, creative executive with Walt Disney Imagineering, worked on a whole host of projects from the Tower of Terror to Disney Cruise Line to Disneyland Paris, Hong Kong Disney. He's amazing. So he spoke. Then we had different breakout sessions. We had a number of breakout sessions. Kind of the focuses of them included themed entertainment, theatrical production, and video creation. So we had a few options, but they, for the most part, stayed in those kind of categories. Then we offered behind the scenes at the Ark. We had a behind the scenes of one of our construction sites where our Welcome Center and Jerusalem model are being constructed. We had a behind the scenes of our horticulture. That's like our greenhouses at the Ark, and then a behind the scenes of our zoo. Then that evening, we had kind of a special film we got to watch, and then we had just like free time walking through the Ark and having desserts up on the roof deck, and just a lot of good fellowship. Then day two, we started with a tour of our attractions design studio and some breakfast. We got to walk people through there and kind of share some of our processes and current projects we have there. And then we went to the Creation Museum, and there we had one of our keynote speakers, Garner Holt, speak. Garner, what an amazing guy! He's like the authority today on animatronics, and he's just has such a cool story of how the Lord has allowed him to grow his business, and so that was really cool. We had Q&A with him. Then we also heard from Ken Ham again. And then we had our breakout sessions and some more behind the scenes tours, including behind the scenes of our conservatory, of our zoo, and of the new Radiance exhibit coming up. So just kind of big picture. Those were some of the big highlights.
Yeah, each of those were unique and special, and it's nice to see all those as well. And I'm excited for the Jerusalem village and
Yeah,
model that you guys have going on there. It's really neat, and to see that in person, I think
cool.
guests are going to like it. I think they will. So,
Cool. That's great
uh,
to hear.
yep, and it's neat to see those in progress. It's you see the final product, absolutely, but to see it in progress and to the scale that Answers in Genesis does it is just another reason why people should come to Spark at the Arc 2026. You get some neat
Yeah.
experiences like this, and you get to go to the art and design studio to get a tour
Yeah.
through there and see. The thing they were highlighting this year was the creation of the Jerusalem model, which that was neat to see the
Yeah.
3D printers, the painters, the wig designers and all that stuff. So it's neat to see
Yeah.
all those pieces in action.
Cool.
But what were some highlights or favorite moments for you in the whether it was the creation process or the day of the event?
That is a hard question because I had so much fun. I think seeing it all come together was really special because we've been prepping for over a year. Not like it's not like the only thing we've been doing, but it's been over a year since from kind of having the idea to seeing it happen. And I think just being there, seeing it come to pass, and especially, I mean, the thing that stood out to me the most was just the friendships and fellowship, meeting other creatives in our industries, being inspired by them, meeting so many people. So I think the relationships and connecting with people was really probably the ultimate highlight for me through it all. But yeah,
And I do love that networking that you mentioned, that fellowship of believers,
yeah.
having a common passion for this industry. And we
Right.
we can easily see the negative side of the industry and decisions that are made, but to see believers come together and just have a good time, even in the midst of the
Yeah.
craziness of the industry, no matter what they had at their work site, they got to come to Answers in Genesis attractions for 2 days, three if they got to take advantage of the third ticket, which, by the way, you get a
Right.
third ticket to experience these. It's so neat, and I got to meet some cool people along the way and build some friendships
Cool.
there, and it's so neat to see that. But I totally agree. The
Mm.
networking and the fellowship side of things were something I love too. And um, what is something God has taught you and your team from this event?
Mm. Mm. Oh man, I think one thing that the Lord has taught me, and I think all of us, is the importance of staying connected and encouraged by other believers, for us in the creative kind of realm, because we can easily kind of just become a little bubble if we're not careful. It's not intentional, but just to know there's other believers who are doing creative things in different parts of the country and the world, and to be encouraged by them and to be able to pray for them, us to learn about what they're doing. I think that was huge for me, just learning the importance of staying connected, that fellowship with other believers in this creative industry.
Awesome. And looking towards next year and beyond, what does 2026 look like so far for what you can share? And
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
what is something you look to do in the future with this event?
Cool. Yeah. So at Spark this year, we were able to share a little bit on the back of our event guide about next year. So this is all we had kind of prepared when we did Spark this year. And basically, it is that we have our three keynote speakers, and they'll be Ken Ham again, our founder CEO. We're also super blessed to have Chris Hershen, who is such an amazing guy. So Chris is chair of Hershen Family Entertainment, the group behind Dollywood and Silver Dollar City, and a growing amount of growing portfolio of attractions. You may have heard in the news recently they just acquired a bunch of new attractions for them. So he has a lot of cool things going on. And then Steve Greene, who is the visionary behind the Museum of the Bible, he's also chairman of the board for Museum of the Bible. So super thrilled to have these incredible leaders in our industry come and share about the work that the Lord's allowing them to do. Also, though, at Spark this year, we at the end of the event we offered to our attendees to take a survey about the event, and we got some really helpful feedback, and that's kind of began to lead us as we're just really dreaming right now about what Spark in 2026 can look like. But we've heard some things that's going to lead us to make some just slight changes. One thing I think I can say this, it's pretty much for sure. We're going to add a pre-day to the event. So the event will be April 21st and April 22nd,
Mm-hmm.
2026. But on April 20th, we're going to add a pre-day because we tried to do so much this year. We heard good feedback, but we also heard people need a little more time for lunch, a little more time to fellowship, a little more time
Mm-hmm.
in our design studio for behind the scenes. So we're going to stretch things out a little bit. That'll be a way we can do that, is offering that pre-day on April 20th. We're starting to have conversations with people we hope will come and lead breakout sessions, and we have a list of amazing leaders again who we hope will come, and we have some kind of verbal yeses so far from people, so we're excited as we kind of have those conversations in the works. But there's also things that we hope to do again because we think we've heard good things about from this year. Just time to fellowship, having sponsors, time to connect, behind the scenes tours, breakout sessions, our studio tour. Maybe we had a lot of fun at our dessert time on the end of day one. We hope to do something like that again. So if you think of it, we'd be so grateful for your prayers as we look forward to Spark next year. And just looking even beyond that, our hope is that this can just be an event that hopefully can be an annual thing and be an encouragement to believers in creative industries. If the Lord sees fit, we'd love for it to continue to grow and just honor Him. It's His event, so whatever He wants to do. But yeah,
Amen. And that's get me more excited for next year
cool,
than I am right
cool,
now, man.
awesome, yeah,
So
cool,
I think that is a good idea to have that extra day just as like a
cool,
pre-event fellowship and just build those
cool,
friendships and to extend it past rushing it in 2 days. So
yeah, yeah,
that's something neat.
cool,
And then here's the sales pitch, Alan. Why should folks come to Spark the Arc 2026?
yeah. Well, what I think we're trying to offer and what we would hope people would want to come and be a part of is an opportunity for believers to come together who are in these creative industries or preparing to be in them, like college students, or just passionate about these industries, to find a place where they can be encouraged and equipped by fellow believers. And like this year, we had people all across the spectrum who are maybe getting close to retirement in this industry, or college students wanting to get in this industry, or just people interested, or professionals, whatever it may be. We hope that'll happen again. That next year, people will see this as a place where they can come and hear from industry leaders who are believers, who I was so blessed to learn from, and just to learn from anything that we have going on at AIG, if any of that can be helpful through things like tours, but really just to build those relationships and be equipped. So yeah.
Awesome. I'm sold. I hope you all are sold. So, how can folks purchase their tickets for
Yeah.
Spark 2026?
So if you go to arkencounter.com/spark, that is our webpage where you can find all the information about the event. You can get a ticket there. You can learn about our speakers, and we'll continue as we develop the event to add more details to that webpage. So right now, it's pretty much just info about our three speakers, but over time, we plan to add the event schedule, and as more breakout session speakers come along, we'll have information about them as well. So arkencounter.com/spark.
Awesome. And as we wrap up the portion of Spark, I'm going to tell you this now, Alan. You can share as little or as much as you want about what you talked about Wednesday evening at the
Yeah.
conference. A little bit's been
Yes.
announced on social media this past week, but there's some things you didn't mention on social media.
Yes, so this was where I did that little thing about like future things coming to the arc. Is that what you're thinking about?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, okay, cool. So yeah, I had to kind of get permission to share some things, and I couldn't share everything, but um, I was able to share a few ideas, concepts that are not greenlit, may or may not happen, could look different than what we're thinking right now. But I'll just share a little bit about those two attractions in particular that we've put a decent amount of just blue sky concept development into. One is an area for kids and young families, and kind of the need for it has arisen as we've observed at the Ark Encounter. Just the importance of reaching the next generation, and we have a lot of kind of museum style experiences right now at the Ark, a lot of signage, but kids younger kids have a hard time sometimes engaging with those kind of things. So we want to bring the account of the Bible to life in a way that they will respond to. So we have this area we've called Noah's Timber Village, and the idea is that it would be an area in our kind of narrative world set in the time just prior to the flood, as Noah is building the ark, as animals begin to arrive, who will be boarding with him on the ark, and kind of with that story world context, not story like it's fictional, but just that kind of narrative world, that would allow us to launch into different kind of experiences we could give young families in the forms of fun themed rides. And so ideas of different kinds of flat rides, of coasters, but each kind of integrated through theming, through story, through queue line experiences, tying into how did Noah build the ark? What were the animals like who arrived? So again, this is blue sky, may not happen. We'd be grateful for your prayers for these things, but we've gotten really excited. We think we can kind of develop some different characters with these animals who are arriving, or maybe even helping with the construction process, kind of our anchor coaster in the concept. Just kind of right now we've kind of called this animal Tusker. He's a juvenile paleomastodon, and he would be kind of at the front of the train of this anchor coaster. And so it's as if as you hop aboard this coaster, this family coaster, he's giving you kind of a tour of the construction site. maybe he has a mission he's taking you on, but something goes a little bit awry, things get kind of crazy, and so the second half of the ride is wild, but you make it back to the station in time. So those are just some of our ideas, but we think it could be so cool. So that's a project that we're praying about, and we'll see what the Lord may choose to do there. Another one is a attraction that would be based on the biblical Tower of Babel. And our thought with this one would be to, in kind of a similar way that we've kind of replicated Noah's Ark, building Noah's Ark, we would do that with the tower. But of course, the Tower of Babel, in some ways, is almost opposite in its story in terms of what its core idea is. The Ark is a beautiful representation of God's salvation, whereas the tower is God's judgment on man's pride. So the story itself, the narrative would be quite different in some ways, but we would use the tower in this concept, at least, as a facade to house a dark ride inside, similar to what you would see at Universal or Disney, but at our lower budget level. But to invite guests to go back in time to see the construction of the tower itself, to see God's judgment, to follow people groups to different areas that they were dispersed to, and to lead guests to what we call the one blood message, and that is that Jesus died for people of all these different people groups who dispersed from Babel, people of every nation, tribe, and tongue. So after the ride, we would have post ride exhibitry, allowing guests to learn more details. So again, that's just a concept, may or may not happen, but it's something we've put a lot of concept development work into. And there's other attractions as well, kind of just in concept phase, but those are the main two that we've put a lot of time into. So we would be so grateful if anyone would be interested in praying about those. The realities of funding, of people and such. Staff is challenging, but we hope, if the Lord wills, to be able to do things like those.
All right, people, you heard it. Pray for Tusker and pray for the tower. Go for it. You guys know you want it, so go ahead and pray for this fervently and hard. So, but man, that's
Amen.
awesome that you're thinking towards the future. And then I know with the closing of one restaurant at the Creation Museum, it opens space for future expansion. Now that you all have moved to your beautiful new facility and headquarters for Answers in Genesis, so we're excited to hear what that side of the museum is going to hold in the future as well. I'm sure you guys, I don't know if you guys have ideas for it yet or not, but it's going to be pretty neat to see what you do with it.
Yeah, so in case anyone's not aware, we've recently made a move. We had a lot of staff in offices at our Creation Museum building property there. We've acquired a new headquarters, and so we now have a lot of empty office space. So there are ideas, none that's necessarily locked in, but there are ideas on how we can use that office space. Some of the kind of reoccurring ideas have to do with kids exhibitry in some way, whether it's classrooms or hands-on experiences, something to do with kids and families. Again, we see, just like we do with the Ark, a need to reach the next generation. So nothing. It'll be interesting to see. I think time will tell what exactly happens there. Nothing is. I don't think anything will happen super quickly, just because we're just in kind of discussion phases about those things. But yeah, we'd be grateful for your prayers for that space at the museum also.
Awesome. And along the lines of praying for Answers in Genesis, first and foremost, what are some prayer requests that you all have as a team and as a ministry that you would like listeners to pray for?
Yes, thank you so much, man. I
Mm-hmm.
cannot thank you all enough. Um, with our team and with AIG and attractions design, just prayers for the Lord's leading, just creatively, vision, and then provision. Also, that as the Lord would give us direction, He'd provide everything we would need with projects and such. Also, prayers for just the Lord's success, in a sense that people would come to know Christ, would be equipped in their faith, that the next generation would be reached through these attractions. Um, and just safety over our team. I mean, both spiritually and even physically. I mean, working with power tools and heavy things and all that kind of stuff, we'd be grateful for the Lord's protection. So those are just a few things we'd be so grateful for your prayers for.
Absolutely. And then how can folks get involved, whether it's monetarily, as a volunteer, or as a full-time position at the Art and
Yeah.
Creation Museum and Ministry?
So for all those, the kind of touch point, at least starting place, would be going to our website, answersingenesis.org. That's where you'll get to know more about who we are. We have a lot of different outreaches. The kind of the core ministry, Answers in Genesis, has we're an apologetics ministry, meaning we want to help equip believers so that they know that the Bible is true. So we have
Mhm.
lots of articles on our website, for example, if people have questions about a whole host of things related to Scripture. We have different like speakers who go out. We have our Answers TV outreach. We have different events that we do. We have our attractions. So the website will kind of give people information about who Answers in Genesis is. Also, on our website is where you'll find different job opportunities. So if you search Answers in Genesis jobs, you'll be led to a web page which has a list of different jobs, and it's continually changing and updating as needs arise. So feel free to check even continually if you're interested. And then you'll also find on our website where if you are interested in giving, you can find a way to do that there. Um, and as you look to where our kind of giving pages, that's also where you'll learn about future projects. We have an annual end of year giving, which would be kind of like the last couple months of the year, and we'll showcase on our webpage projects that we're fundraising for. But you don't have to wait for the end of the year. But answersingenesis.org is where you can learn all that.
Awesome. And we'll leave all the links down below in the show notes, how you can get involved, how you can join the team, and all that good stuff. But
Yeah.
um, as we draw this time to a close, which it's been a lot of fun, Alan, we did open up the floor for some questions from our listeners over on our Instagram page. And some of these questions we've covered some of these already, but one of the questions was, what future attraction are you looking forward to the most? Or which one do you hope comes
Oh,
to fruition?
yes. So I think the two that I mentioned, Noah's Timber Village and the Tower of Babel, again, they're blue sky. They may or may not happen. If they do, they could look much different than how I shared. But those are the two that I think I would say, if I had to choose, I'm most excited about. They both represent to me just huge opportunities to share biblical truth in unique ways and in really fun ways. We'd love for them to be really immersive and thrilling, but in a family friendly way. So those would be my top two.
Awesome. And then this is where I encourage everybody to go back to season 3 to hear our talk with Alan. But you worked at Kings Island
Yeah.
in your youth and in your college days. What's your favorite ride, whether it's still here or not here at Kings Island?
Oh yeah, I love Kings Island. I'm a huge fan. Go there all the time. That is such a hard question. I mean, because there's so many great rides. Like I have, when you say that, so many things come to mind. I love Flight of Fear. I
Mhm.
love Orion. I love Adventure Express, all for different reasons. If I had to choose one, it may change depending on the day of the week, but it might be the Beast. It's
Hmm.
just so legendary, so long, and the recent track work they've done on it over the winter has I really appreciate that. It's very cool. It's a
Mhm.
little bit different. So yeah, if I had to land on one, it'd be the Beast. I think Diamondback would be a close
Mhm.
second. But yeah, I love Kings Island. So many good rides.
Absolutely. All right. As I mentioned at the top of the show, we did run into some technical errors at this point in the interview. But to catch you up on what we did talk about, I did ask him after this question what his thoughts were on the Gravity Group read track of the Beast, which he said he loves it. and it's a great read track by Gravity Group, and they did a really good job on it. And then he mentioned that we had Corey from Gravity Group at Spark the Arc, and he presented there, so it was neat to connect with him and tell him in person about it. But other than that, we talked about his Song of the Week recommendation, to which he suggested Voice of Truth by Casting Crowns, and then he mentioned that it was neat seeing them in person at the Ark Encounter last year for 40 Days and 40 Nights, which, by the way, that event is coming back this year to the Ark Encounter, which I'll go ahead and put the poster over here. Check that out. Check out the dates, times, and artists that'll be coming there. But they've got a really good lineup this year. Check it out. It's absolutely free with park admission. So you just pay for parking and admission to the Ark Encounter, and you get those concerts for free. It is so worth it. But I want to give you a little pro tip here. Line up as soon as you can for those concerts. They will fill up quickly, especially depending on who the artist is for the day. So we talked about that. And then ways to connect with Allen and Answers in Genesis. So his biggest tip was to visit answersingenesis.org. That's your go-to spot for all things at the Ark Encounter, Creation Museum, events, curriculum, all that good stuff. So check out the link here and look at the show notes below for those links as well. And he said to connect with him, you can connect with him on LinkedIn and email him as well. And we'll leave that email below just to stay connected with Allen. But we do really, really appreciate Allen taking time out of his busy schedule to hop on the podcast just to fill us in and give us an update on Spark the Ark, what's going on at the Creation Museum, Ark Encounter, all that good stuff. And the future, as you know, is bright for the ministry there, Answers in Genesis, both at the Ark Encounter, which I don't know about you, but I hope, again, you all are praying for Tusker and praying for the future expansions, Lord willing, that God would do according to his plan and will. But let's admit it, we all want to see a coaster at the Ark Encounter. So in all seriousness, please pray for them and pray for Lord's direction and funds to come in, which later down the line, if God puts it on their heart to actually greenlight these projects, it'd be so neat to work together as Ready for Life Ministries and do some kind of fundraiser for that project or future projects. But stay tuned for that. Again, it's in the Lord's timing, but please be in prayer for them, just for wisdom, guidance, direction for all their exhibits and attractions, because ultimately, whatever they do, it's pleasing to the Lord, and it will draw all men to him for salvation. So thanks again, Allen, for joining us this week, and thank you all for listening. And if this is your first time listening to the ROYL Podcast as a result of our guest today, thank you for joining us. Check out some of our previous episodes, including the one we did with Allen a year or two ago, and I know it'll be a blessing, help, and encouragement to you. So that is all for this week. We will see you all next week here on the Ride Your Life Podcast. Peace.